Great pleasure for me to introduce today's speaker, Liz Levin. Liz is the Director of Jewish Life and Learning at JCC Greater Boston, with over 25 years of experience in Jewish education. She's been a member of Temple Emunah for nearly 15 years, regularly reads Torah, and has served as president of the Billy Dalwin Preschool Board. Liz holds a master's degree in religious education from Hebrew Union College and is currently a rabbinical student in the inaugural class of HUC's Virtual Pathway. She lives in Waltham with her husband and 3 daughters, and the title of her talk today is Parashat Chukat, Moses, the Rock, and Meeting the Moment.
I think I printed out big enough I can actually see it. Shabbat Shalom. For those who know me, you'll be unsurprised to hear that in college, I was very involved in my Hillel. I helped to found the egalitarian traditional minyan, where I was, again, you're going to be surprised, the Torah reader. Because I was so involved in my Hillel, in my senior year, I was invited to a special fancy dinner. We had all the student leaders, all the major donors, and our guest of honor was Charles Bronfman. You may recognize from Seagram's fame. He was a big contributor to the McGill Hillel where I was participating. Now, as my kids like to mention, I went to college in the 1900s. So my memories are a little fuzzy, but this is what I remember about this dinner. Charles Bronfman got up and spoke, and he asked us, who in this room has been to Israel at least once? And everybody raised their hands. And then he said, who here has been more than once? And as I remember it, most of us raised our hands. And this is what I remember him saying. See, you all went to Israel, and now you're involved in Jewish life on campus. If we can just send every college-age student, Jewish student to Israel, they'll all be involved in Jewish life on campus. So I remember sitting there and thinking, well, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. We all went to Israel because we're involved in Jewish life, not the other way around. Now, I will say this was in 1999. If you know what else happened in 1999, Charles Bronfman launched Birthright Israel, where he started sending college-age students and then students in their 20s to Israel for free for 10 days. This is why he's a billionaire and I'm here. So Birthright Israel really changed the way we think about Jewish engagement. It reframed the question from how do we keep young Jews involved to how do we bring new people in? And then how do we deepen and support that connection and not connecting it to synagogue life? So Charles Bronfman had the courage and the clarity and the money to reframe the problem and to come up with a solution. And I was thinking about this story in relation to today's Torah portion. In the section just before what we read today, the people have no water. They're thirsty, they're anxious, they're tired. And so they do what they always do. They whine and they complain to Moses. But Moses, he's also tired. He just lost his sister Miriam. He's really sad. He's very overwhelmed. He's grieving. He's depleted. Any parent will recognize these feelings. Moses goes to God and says, what should I do? And God says, take you and Aaron, take your staff, gather the people, speak to the rock, and in my name it will bring forth water. But Moses gets out there, and he doesn't do that. He yells at them. He yells at them because they're complaining and they're whining and they've lost their faith. And then he hits the rock. Now, the water still comes out. They still have water. They still get what they need. But afterwards, God says to Moses, because you didn't take this opportunity to sanctify my name, you don't get to lead the people into the land of Israel. So this seems a little harsh. One little mistake. Who hasn't lost their temper? God certainly has. And Moses can't lead people in. So what's really happening here? You have to remember that back in Parshat B'Shalach, in the book of Exodus, there's a similar scene. The people are thirsty, they're complaining. God says to Moses, go, strike the rock, and water will come out. No punishment. So what's different? Why is it okay then and not now? So I'm not the first person to see this contradiction. There's a lot of commentary about it. Some of our great commentators, Rashi and Ibn Ezra, they say the issue is that Moses missed the chance to sanctify God's name. That it was important at that moment to show people that even a rock has to obey God's word. God was punishing Moses for not doing exactly what God said. But I want to offer you another possibility. Back in the book of Exodus, the Israelites were fresh out of Egypt. They were still operating in a framework of fear and control. Power for them was physical and it was visible, and authority came through action. So striking the rock made sense. That's how authority worked for a people shaped by slavery. But here in Chukat, something shifted. They've been in the wilderness for a while. They've seen miracles. They had revelation at Sinai. They have just come out of the issue of the 12 spies, when they're told that they can't go into the land of Israel themselves. The rebellion of Korach. They're being questioning their leaders. They're pushing their boundaries. They're discovering their own power and the limits of that power. And so this moment is about teaching them something new. It's not about coercion and spectacle, but this moment requires relationship and speech and trust. The people need to learn that holiness isn't only found in miracles, but in words and in process. But Moses misses it. He reaches for what worked before, and it backfires on him. We need to know what this moment calls for, and we need to be willing to change to meet that moment. And right now, we're living in a moment of accelerated change. All of our legacy institutions, our schools, our JCCs, our synagogues, our federations, were built by people who believed deeply in the Jewish future, and those institutions were visionary for their time. But that's not this time. And we need to think about how we're going to change. 5 years ago, if you told me that this synagogue was going to be wired to be live streaming this, I would have told you you were crazy. But how many people now access services online? Growing up, I was told, avoid interfaith marriage, interfaith relationships. Basically, don't talk to anyone who's not Jewish. Because if you do, there will be no Jews left. But today, we see our Jewish community is growing because people are marrying those from other backgrounds. We've opened our doors, we've adapted and changed, and we've brought those families in. The relationship between American Jews and the state of Israel is another pressing challenge. For many younger Jews, that relationship's strained, and the old narratives just aren't working. How can we speak honestly and in a way that aligns with people's values? What's the connection that we can cultivate today? So I've had the opportunity to engage with these questions, both as a Jewish educator and now as a rabbinical student at HUC and the Virtual Pathway program. The program isn't just a new format. It's not just about taking classes online. For generations, rabbinical school did require you to uproot your life, to move to LA or New York, maybe Cincinnati, since 2005 Boston. But you had to step away from your work and your community, and for many people, including me, that just wasn't possible. But my cohort is different. We're rooted in our communities. So in addition to learning, we are putting that into action in real time. We're taking the challenges of our communities and bringing them to our classes to work together on how to solve them. We have lawyers, cantors, teen educators, a poet liturgist, MBAs, religious school directors, informal educators, come from Israel and the United States, and all different places. I asked my cohort members what are some of the big questions that they want to wrestle with in their rabbinate, and these are some of the answers. How can we foster Jewish solidarity across political and theological differences. How will AI and emerging technology shape Jewish life and leadership? How can we make participation in Jewish life more affordable? Should we disentangle American Jewish life from Israeli politics? Can we center practices like meditation and embodiment as authentically Jewish? And ultimately, what does it even mean to be a rabbi in the 21st century? So these aren't abstract questions. They're the real questions that this community is facing. And I hope that you will also join us in asking these questions with compassion and creativity. But I do want to say that big ideas don't always start with big plans. As I mentioned, I helped found the traditional Egal Minyan. We started with some folding chairs in the basement. We met once a month, because that's as often as I could do the Torah reading. Then we fundraised and hired a student rabbi to come and do the high holiday services. Then we started meeting weekly. Then I graduated. I didn't think about it again. But last year I met somebody who was another graduate of McGill, who talks about his involvement with the very vibrant ghetto shul, named after the student ghetto, where the students live next to McGill University. Is not anything about being Jewish. And it is now a vibrant student-led Jewish space that still exists today. And it grew out of that traditional egalitarian mission. It didn't start as a grand vision. We weren't trying to change the world. We were just looking around, me and my friends, saying, we'd like to go to shul more often, but there's not really anything for us right here. We found a gap and we tried to fill it. We met that moment, and that community's thriving. So there's no one right way to meet the moment. But there is a wrong way, which is doing nothing. So whether we're trying to draw water from a rock, launch a new rabbinical program, or set up folding chairs in the basement, the question remains, what does this moment require of us? I hope that we all have the vision to ask that question and the courage to answer that question, and the faith and the trust that the rock will still bring forth water, no matter how we approach it. Shabbat shalom.